I'd like to welcome in now former federal prosecutor and president of Los Angeles West Coast Lawyers, Neama Rahmani. Neama, thank you so much for your time. Great to speak with you again. You know, we spoke just a few days ago as we were waiting for this verdict to come in. From your perspective, explain the significance of this decision today by the jury.
Nicole, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm a former federal prosecutor, and this was nothing less than a complete and total loss by the government. The Mann Act violations, they're a throw-in. I expect Combs to be released on bail today and likely get time served or close to it. This will go down as the most expensive prostitution trial in American history. And had we known that Combs was going to be convicted of just prostitution, no prosecutor in this country would have brought these charges. The jurors rejected the testimony of Cassie Ventura, victims Mia and Jane universally, finding them not credible. And again, I'm as pro-prosecution as they come, but this was nothing but a setback for prosecutors in the Southern District of New York, widely considered the most prestigious prosecutor's office in the country.
Wow, Neema, I have to say, you shocked me a little bit. I did want to ask you, I mean, do you feel that the government overcharged in this case? Was this a good use of federal resources? Obviously, hindsight being 2020.
This was a terrible use of federal resources to spend months of juror time, court time, multiple prosecutors, a small army of lawyers in that New York courtroom. This was not a good use of time. And look, there were a lot of self-inflicted wounds by the prosecution, and I'm happy to go through them. They grossly underestimated the impact of the victim's own words. Cassie Ventura's emails and text messages saying she wants to get freaky and can't wait to do another freak off. Mia not reporting the sexual assault to law enforcement or even prosecutors when she met with them, and posting on social media how much she loved and adored Diddy, her brother. And victim Jane, who frankly was probably in a transactional relationship with Diddy, was getting money from him and still getting her rent paid, was getting jewelry, bags, still getting her legal bills paid for. So jurors probably thought she knew exactly what she was getting herself into when she got in a relationship with him. So, by failing to bring on some of the other victims that didn't have a personal or romantic or business relationship with Diddy, maybe they could have brought minors. We know that minors can't consent. That would have negated the defense's best argument here. Or bringing victims that were one-off sexual assault victims. Some of the victims the prosecution identified in their indictment, like victim 3, Gina, didn't even show up at trial. She went MIA. So they failed to appreciate the possibility that someone might be paid off, embarrassed, or scared. Now, I did think there was a potential path for the government to maybe get to racketeering. I thought the sex trafficking charges were very weak. I predicted a not guilty verdict at the end of the government's case. But I thought maybe the government could prove extortion or kidnapping or arson or bribery. There was plenty of evidence of that. The fact that the government wasn't even able to get some of the non-sex RICO predicates by this jury leads me to believe that they thought that this entire trial was a complete waste of time.
And Neema, so that just leads me to, I think, the next obvious question. What was at the heart of bringing these charges then in the first place? If you, an actual former federal prosecutor, are saying that this was a weak case, this was a waste of government resources, why bring these charges then in the first place?
Well, look, I was very underwhelmed. I thought we would get evidence of sex abuse of minors, right? Minors can't consent. We didn't hear any of that. I thought we'd hear about celebrities participating in these freak-offs. That didn't happen. I thought we would hear from victims that were sexually assaulted in a one-off. Why is that important? Because someone who is allegedly raped by Diddy, if those allegations are credible, won't have those text messages and social media posts saying how much they love him. They should have brought more victims. And speaking of failures, the prosecution didn't bring Christina Horam, KK, D-Rock, Diddy's security. These were two individuals at the head of the criminal enterprise. Look, I put more than 1,000 people in federal prison, and I primarily prosecuted drug cartels. Nicole, I can count on 2 fingers the number of people I wanted to flip, and I didn't. These are the 2 most important people in Combs' inner circle, and he gave them a pass. You got to charge them. as indicted co-conspirators and flip on them to testify against their boss. So massive failure in presentation of the case by the prosecution in terms of the people they called, how they called, and the evidence they put on. I'm not saying the result would have been different, but it would have potentially given them a chance, and complete failure by SDNY prosecutors
Wow,
here.
yeah, still so shocking to hear you say that, Neema. All right, so we know Combs obviously still needs to be sentenced. He does face up to 10 years in prison, but he was found guilty of, or found not guilty of, the more serious charges. Do you think there is a strong possibility that he is released, maybe some type of supervised release until sentencing? And what do you think the sentence will ultimately be?
Nicole, he should absolutely be released today. He deserves bail. If someone's charged with just prostitution, Mann Act, they would get bail. He deserves bail. The jury has spoken. And people are talking about the 10-year maximum sentence, and I heard prosecutors saying they're going to go for 20 years. I mean, that's ridiculous. I did some back of the napkin calculations, and he's looking at, a range of maybe 15 to 21 months. I mean, really, he should get time served after everything that he's been through. So when you're a prosecutor, you're supposed to seek justice. You're not supposed to, get wins and losses. The jury has spoken. And look, Doug Whitmore, Cassie's lawyer, I heard him speak. I have a lot of respect for him. But this was a loss for his client. And if Combs is guilty of prostitution, so is Cassie Ventura. So is Jane. They were contacting the sex workers and paying them. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that Cassie or Jane be prosecuted. I do believe that they were victims here. But I think Combs should be a free man. He's beaten these charges, and I think prosecutors should take their loss in this case, agree to bond, agree to release, agree to some sort of nominal slap on the wrist sentence, and let him live the rest of his life.
Wow. All right. Former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani, really insightful. Thank you so much for your time.